Hello and welcome to another meeting of the Geek Cabal. Cabal Whisperings. This is podcast number 8.
Yes.
And September 21st. Jesus, where the hell is the...
Where is the time going?
Where has the time gone? Soon it'll be time to wake up Green Day.
Yeah.
Because September is about ready to end.
Yep.
Earth, Wind, and Fire have already come through with, September.
Man, Earth, Wind, and Fire reference. There we go. Did not expect that when we started recording. Two minutes ago. or any other prior point on this day.
No, it's just crazy. It's been a busy week at work and not been able to get any recordings done, so it's kind of nice to get back behind the mic for a moment.
Yeah.
I gotta definitely next week get into my recordings because I've been a little bit slacking behind, but we did get the episode of Ahsoka recorded this week, so and kind of a note, we know that these our podcasts usually go for about an hour and a half,
hour and a half, 2 hours, somewhere in there is where they've been going.
And I know obviously we just started, so obviously you can hold your likes, comments, sharings and subscribings till the end, but we just wanted to kind of make sure that you all were aware that we do appreciate all that, all the comments and such. It's just easier to get it out front so that anyone listening can definitely remember to do that. Do the timestamps if it helps. That's always I've started figuring out how to do that, and it's don't do it often, but if there's a particular comment that we make and you want to timestamp it in there, let us know.
Oh, I thought you meant like the video itself. Like,
no,
I know how to do that.
But... No, I meant like within the comments where you could say add a timestamp to your comment.
Yeah, like I feel like I know how to do that.
Yeah, there's a way of doing it. Honestly, I can't remember off the top of my head.
Because I know I've had to link to specific timestamps in videos, which I'm assuming it's the same procedure. But
so, yeah, as far as channel news, we've had the Ahsoka video come up. There is your BattleTech video, right?
I had a review of a BattleTech book is up. By the time this video that you're watching and or listening to right now is up, there should either be another BattleTech video, an unboxing should either be up or be about to put up. So just depends on the order of things. The video is basically done. Just have to redo one minor part and edit it in. But since this is Thursday, I don't know if it'll be up by Friday or because I want to put this up on Monday, hopefully. So we'll just have to see.
Yeah, I think I'm going to have to throw in my unboxing in there because, like I said, I've got a couple other things in the pipeline. They're longer videos, so I think the unboxings are obviously a lot simpler to do, and I've got what I need to get it done. Like I said, it's been sitting over there for 2 weeks now on the floor, ready to go. So, but no, not a whole lot on the channel news.
Well, there is one thing I do want to mention.
Oh.
So by the time this that you're listening to is up, we'll have at least one chunk of a former podcast up. Because I've noticed that several other channels do this. We're going to, since these videos are an hour and a half, 2 hours long, we are going to take certain segments and make them their own videos. So one of those is already up. So for those of you who are subscribed and who listen to these, if you listen to it all the way through, we'd appreciate it if you listen to it again, but you're not missing anything. It is from one of the other podcasts. The opening little clip says as much, and there'll be a link in the description to the podcast that it came from. So we're doing this. Obviously there's the very self-serving goal of hopefully people see these and come over and watch the longer ones and subscribe and all that other YouTube stuff. But also, hopefully they'll fill the role that our channel sorely lacks in the shorter video content front, which we can achieve by using a clip that we've already filmed instead of having to film something else. And again, these things are almost, hour and a half, 2 hours long. I know most people don't sit all the way through them. So, it might be a segment that you missed or something. But that is the general, the gist of what those are. and those are going to be, I don't know that we necessarily need to advertise those on the Facebook and the Twitter, which hopefully you folks have checked out. Uh, but
And those are in the description down
yes,
below. So
those are in the description of the video itself and on the channel main page.
yeah, I can say Facebook is a great way if you want to actually contact us and message us about anything directly. We do appreciate those as well.
Yes, and so since these are just clips of previous videos, you guys already got the notice for the main video. So now, if you guys want us to advertise them as a reminder or something, let me know.
That'd also be a good way to say, hey, you should see these guys. Listen to what they talk about. And then people are like, my God, they just ramble.
Well, I mean, yeah. Do you listen to many other podcasts? There's a lot of rambling out there.
Oh, I know. I'm just trying to keep the spirit lively here.
Oh yeah. But anyway, that's what those are, and they're going to have their own playlist, which I think I just called it podcast segments. And then I'll also put them into any relevant playlists. Like the only one we have up as of this recording is one. It starts off with where you asked me about, did I think that Star Trek Discovery is responsible for the Trek Renaissance at the moment? And it's about 10, 12 minutes of that. So it's also there. These will all be full of rambling because we go everywhere on these things. Like one of the others I have carved out, I think starts with One Piece and ends up with like Die Hard or something.
Yeah.
So it can go anywhere. I try to find a good natural end point for the thought to carry itself out, and but try to keep them no longer than 15 minutes. That's my goal. Unless it's something really spectacular, like for tonight's episode, and hopefully you'll stick around for it because it'll be under the streaming segment, which is towards the end. I've got an awful lot of thoughts on the last Ahsoka episode. Well, there's one hot take, but it's not what you think, so stick around for that one. But I might at some point take all the various Ahsoka comments we've made in the podcast and compile them into one thing. Just call them miscellaneous Ahsoka comments or something. I don't know. We'll just have to see how that goes. But that's basically it for the channel news, I believe. So,
all right, we can actually get into the content that people actually care about.
Well, I mean,
I know. I'm just.
No one would listen to this part if we put it at the end. It's like with movies. There's a reason why the credits used to be at the beginning, because people wanted credit, and they knew if they didn't see it up front, if it was at the end of the movie, people would be like, well, time for me to go, don't need to see this. And then they moved it to the end, and, well, that's what happens. And so now to get people to stick around, you got to put a zinger at the end, which I think originated with Ferris Bueller's Day Off. If any of you out there know of an earlier movie that had a credit or post-credit scene, please let me know.
Well, I think they found a good compromise in the mid credit scene.
Yeah,
because you don't have to wait around for all of the.
You don't need the pages of visual effects artists and.
Yeah, the people that actually made the movie possible. They don't care about that. It's only the actors,
A-list actors, yeah,
and the director and producers.
Yeah, but you know what else has an end credit scene? I'm sure you do. It was a very, very ambitious end credit scene. Masters of the Universe.
Oh yeah.
Where you find out Skeletor's not dead, and look out for the sequel. I'm still waiting on that one. Canon Films, where you at? You've totally let me down. You can make 5 Death Wish movies, but you can't make a. I think they made the Death Wish movies. I'm probably wrong about that. They made Cobra. I think that was the movie I'm thinking of. But anyway.
So, you want to go with your movie stuff first or my movie stuff?
We can go with mine first, I guess, because it's the first part's really short. There is apparently a Highlander reboot in the works that's going to be starring Henry Cavill. Now, we did a video, myself and Brad, several months ago, and I'm going to try to link to it in the description, and if you're watching this, it'll be up here somewhere. Our franchise fixes segment for the Highlander series, and I believe these people who are making this, from everything I've heard, had the same general ideas. Because while it is a reboot, the first movie is not going to just be a straight-up remake of the original first movie. It's not going to end with The Gathering. It's going to be several movies that lead to The Gathering.
as it should. Well, and
which is what it should have been from the beginning, but you didn't know it was going to succeed. So, but they're also going to incorporate elements of the lore from the TV series, from the sounds of things. So, which is good because the TV series was excellent as well. So it sounds like they're doing all the right things. Plus, I think Henry Cavill will be pretty good. So, although in hindsight, with his size, he also would have been good for the Kurgan too. So I don't know who they'll probably just get Clancy Brown again for that.
Yeah. Well, and Kurgan has to be somebody that looks intimidating, like.
Yeah.
And I don't just mean big intimidating, but Clancy Brown, like he said, his face, he also looked.
Yeah, and his voice. And like in the movie, they went for a reason why his voice sounds like that, but his voice basically does sound like that. So.
And I just don't know who that would be. I mean, it'd have to be someone like, I'm not saying an ugly person, but a person that can pull off an ugly mug really well.
Yeah, I don't have anyone off the top of my head, but I'm sure you could come up with somebody. But yeah, I really hope they somehow work in some cameos, because Christopher Lambert, Adrian Paul, Clancy Brown, these guys are all still alive. Michael Ironside, if we want to reference Highlander 2 at all. Mario Van Peebles, he was the villain in the third one. He's still alive. I mean, it'd be nice to have, especially, I figure the easy way, have them be part of the Watchers. Yeah. Because Christopher Lambert is legally blind. He cannot sword fight anymore. He almost killed Michael Ironside filming Part 2. He was legally blind then. He definitely should not be sword fighting anybody now. So
he can just be Lord Raiden.
There you go. So yeah, obviously, I'm sure the strike is affecting this. So we'll have to see how it pans out. Speaking of, I did have just some general comments on the strike. It's not that they've really advanced anything, but I was listening to someone else the other day, and I realized that there was a number of things that we didn't mention in our video about the strike, which I'll also try to link to in the description. But there's a few factors at play here that are really screwing everything up. Part of the problem is that you have some of the content creators are like Netflix and Amazon and Apple Plus. None of them are dependent on these movies doing well or doing anything, because they all have other businesses. But like, say, Universal, they've got the theme park or parks. I don't remember if they have one or two, but that's it. Then they've got like NBC, but NBC is still dependent on writers and actors. So like the other studios have a more immediate problem, but since the three I mentioned produce so much content, they can wait this out. I mean, Netflix will just go buy stuff from India, which is what they've been doing, or Japan or Korea or wherever.
Hey, Bollywood is awesome, by the way.
Oh yeah, hey, I've mentioned it before. I'm all about the Asian zombie movies. They're great. Like there's a whole subgenre. I'm beginning to see the same actors in some of them. I'm going to learn their names eventually, but like. There's plenty of content from the rest of the world that Netflix can buy. They don't care, because obviously people are watching it. Like my dad, I come in there all the time. He's watching weird Spanish action movies with the subtitles, and I know he hates subtitles, but he'll watch them anyway because they're entertaining. So these three don't have any impetus to really move things forward. It's on the others, and on the other side, you've got Bob Iger at Disney basically saying, yeah, we can wait them out, screw them, leading the vanguard, and so like nothing is happening. Like the sides just aren't talking to each other. And we've already had some people say, well, I guess what, screw it, we're going back to work. Like Bill Maher, for instance, is going to bring his show back, and he's like, well, I'm totally sympathetic to the writer's cause, but there's all kinds of other people that work on this show, and they need a paycheck. So I'm just going to full speed ahead without the writers. He's done that. I think Drew Barrymore said she was going to do that. And that's one of the other problems that they don't talk about with the strike, is that if this goes on too long, all the infrastructure for Hollywood's going to start falling apart. Because it's not, while they're not filming anything, like the people that build sets, they're not doing anything. They're not on strike either, but they're not doing anything. Those people are eventually just going to go find other jobs. and then the catering services and the electrical work and all these other jobs that are tied into it. And yeah, eventually you'll be able to replace them, but there's going to be a huge chunk of time where you're making stuff with like
Yeah.
apprentices essentially, or like actors doing double duty and getting their fingers sapped in the electrical wires. And it's just that whole ecosystem is probably by now on the verge of collapse. And then the other big thing is, if they don't get started soon, they can kiss the fall TV season goodbye.
Yeah, well, I already seen where I mean any show that it dared to go against it, I mean, there's throwing all these boycotts out there, and I honestly wonder how many people are sitting down going, "Yeah, I'm going to boycott this show because they're."
Well, regular people aren't. I mean, not in any serious numbers.
And I'm not saying that that the strike doesn't have some.
Well, to what you're about to say, I'm assuming. I think the strike. I think they have perfectly valid concerns because the streaming services are not telling anyone. There's no. It's not transparent at all. Although, from what I've heard, they have committed to turning over the viewership numbers to the other side, so they know what they're working with. But I kind of agree with something I heard that was this is not going to be solved right now. Even if they all got together, this will not be solved right now. It's going to take iterations of the idea before everyone before everyone has a decent feel for, okay, well, streaming should pay this, this should pay this. We can all make money if we do it this way. That's not going to happen right out of the gate. It's going to take a couple of rounds of this stuff.
Yeah, and I'm assuming that the streaming services have to pay for some of those, some of the services they already have, or some of the movies they have. Because if that movie still has I'm assuming some sort of I don't know, copyright's the right one that where it's not in the what is it, the open, gosh darn it,
Public domain.
public domain. So not like White Zombie. Like White Zombie should be able to be put out there, watched because it's public domain.
Right.
But anything that's not in public domain, there has to be some sort of residual.
Oh yeah, they're still paying the whatever deal they have with the studios, and then, as I understand it, it would be like, say Netflix, say they have one of the Marvel movies somehow, some way. Okay, well they would pay Disney for the Marvel movie, and then I think it's incumbent on Disney to pay the stars any kind of deals they have.
Yeah, because it's usually
licensing it out.
Like, say if there is if their contract is listed as a percentage, then yeah. So like say Robert Downey Jr.'s, his was the percentage. Yeah. I think he should still be getting paid for any time, or for as long as the Marvel movies are showing up. It should be a percentage of.
Well, it depends on what his contract is.
Yeah, true, but like what they did with Scarlett Johansson was.
Well, yeah, that was a bad deal because it was a simultaneous release. Her contract was negotiated under the assumption, yes, it was an assumption, but she had no reason to believe otherwise. It was negotiated under the idea that it was going to go to the theaters first, be there for a while, then DVD sales, then Disney Plus. And that's not what happened, and that's why she sued them. I don't know. I should really look up how that turned out because I don't remember.
And I get the reasoning. I get the reasoning why, because of COVID and all that stuff, they couldn't have it in theaters as people were just getting back to theaters because you looked at like a movie like Quantumania. That's exactly how they did it. It was in theaters, then it was just DVD sales or not Blu-ray, whatever, digital.
DVD is still actually the dominant physical format.
I know, but I mean it was you actually had to buy the release, and then it came to Disney Plus.
Yeah.
So that movie was released in the way that I'm assuming she was expecting it to be released, and it wasn't.
Right, and so yeah, like I said, she had, as far as I'm concerned, she had a legitimate gripe there.
But the problem I see right now is that what's going to end up happening is that some of these studios are going to be like, you know what, we're not going to be able to pay. Not only are we not going to be able to pay you, we're not going to be able to stay open, and now we're.
If it gets it. Okay, so here was the other part. I think the studios are going to try to settle with the actors because, yeah, they're all like, "Oh, we're in solidarity," but they're not. The writers don't seem to know what they actually want. That's part of the problem there. But the actors are very clear on what they want, and maybe they'll get it, maybe they won't. But if the studios can make a deal with the actors, they can go a while without needing the writers again, because they have literal vaults full of scripts. And as long as they don't alter them and just film them as is, they can film them because they bought them, they own them. The whole deal with the writers, the only thing they would need them for would be for script changes. And as long as they don't do that, they don't need the writers. They're not breaking any regular. They're not breaking any kind of deal they have with the unions already, as I understand it. So if they can get the actors back, they can go back into production, and they can wait till the end of production to finally make a deal with the writers to then do any kind of cleanup work they need to do. But it also allows them to send the actors out to promote the films that are already done. Because that's the other problem, is they've got movies that are done that are just sitting there. Like that might be why Dune 2 has been pushed back to next year. Or Dune Part 2. Because as far as I know, it's done. You know?
Yeah.
But they can't have the actors go out and promote it. And they want to do that. God only knows why. I have never been swayed to go watch a movie by an actor that's in it telling me it's a good movie. Because what are they going to do? Nah, it's shit. I mean, of course they're going to tell me it's a good movie.
Well,
like,
but that is I mean, that's pretty much what the Snow White actress was doing.
Well, I think she was destroying her movie, but sure.
No, that's what I'm saying. She was pretty much saying it was pretty much when you
No,
go.
she was bad mouthing the original.
I know, but pretty much saying that the original was a crap concept and all of this and how flawed it was. I mean, of course, movies from the 30s and 40s are going to have some things that just don't quite. But that's also kind of where there's some charm to it because it's of a different time.
Yeah.
I mean, that'd be like going back and saying, well, Willie Shakespeare is a.
Willie Shakespeare. Keep going.
Is a, is a terrible writer because he doesn't understand the intricacies of the modern age. And it's like, well, of course he didn't. He didn't know how the internet worked. Well, I sure hope not.
Yeah.
Well, as I saw in a meme, Abraham Lincoln says you can't believe everything you see on the internet.
That's right. You can trust Honest Abe. But no, to your point about the older movies and things, I've actually been thinking about this for a while, and hopefully this isn't a wild divergence, but here goes. I can appreciate the situation Disney is in, or any other studio, but let's focus on Disney here. They've got all these older movies that obviously resonate because they're still successful. Like, you could probably release the original Dumbo in theaters tomorrow, and it'd probably make all kinds of money. Just because, well, one, there's nothing else to watch, but two, like, people be like, oh, hey, let's take our kids to go watch it. They forget that part where, like, the psychedelic wave hits Dumbo, but and maybe the birds on the wires and everything. But anyway, let's ignore those for a second.
So they used to do that, though. They used to open the vault for the movie releases.
Right.
And I believe they did the theatrical releases occasionally like that, too.
Yeah. And so then but Disney's sitting here like, yeah, but we want to do like the modern thing, and we need to be inclusive, and being inclusive is a fine goal. I don't have a problem with it. Except where it just doesn't make any sense in the story. And that's their problem, is they look at Snow White like, oh, this is all outdated and everything. Okay, so you have a couple choices. None of the good ones are, let's kind of remake it, but not. That's like the worst possible idea. You need to either update it and put it in the modern day, and then it can be as diverse and inclusive as you want, because, the modern world is like, multicultural and everything.
See Romeo and Juliet with Leonardo DiCaprio.
Potentially, yes.
Well, I know, but I mean, I'm just saying that movie there particularly could have been anything you wanted it to be because it was a revisioning in modern times.
Right. I like it because of the absurdity of still using the old dialogue. But anyway.
Did you bite your thumb at me? No, but I did bite my thumb.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and look at the movie itself, like the original takes place in Italy, I do believe. And it's probably a fair assumption that in Shakespeare's day, everyone in that play was meant to be white. Whereas now, if you look at that version from the late 90s, there's a fair number of not-so-white people in there because it takes place in a modern American city. That's what you do, and then it all looks, it all gels. So that's one idea, is update them for the modern day, to the modern day.
Well, I think like I said, the biggest travesty that I've seen in the Snow White one um, came from when they didn't hire dwarfs or little people to, and
Oh yeah, no
they were up in arms about that. I'm not sure I agree, and they could have thrown diversity there too. There was nothing
yeah,
that said that you know that the dwarves had to be of anything.
right. And so, but the other option I think Disney has is to basically say, look, instead of the part of the problem is all these fairy tales are all of European origin, and they all take place in like some pseudo European setting. And despite what people on the internet want to try to say, like Europe's been fairly monotone for most of its history. So if it's in a pseudo medieval setting, you kind of expect everyone to look a certain way. So they can take the concept of all these and say, look, it's a new day. We need, we have a more diverse audience. We need to be more inclusive here. So these aren't set in Europe. These are set in, just call it Disneyland, whatever. And then say, in this world that these are all set in, that kind of looks like medieval Europe, it's a multicultural society. Then you can make the characters whatever the hell you want.
Yeah,
You just be upfront about it. And I think most people will go along with it and be like, okay, fine, makes sense to me,
Yeah. As again, if you haven't seen Romeo and Juliet with
Yeah.
Leonardo DiCaprio, watch it and you'll see what we're talking about. Well, I can say we can move on to something that's less decisive.
Hopefully, we didn't lose half our subscribers in that little bit.
And by the way, like I said, we're there's nothing wrong with obviously we definitely want to see inclusion and all that stuff. We definitely don't. There's not an issue with it. It's just got to be done in a way that makes. I feel that makes some sort of sense on that. But
right, and the biggest problem you run into is either in adaptations because the characters are in a certain way in the base story you're adapting, or your other problem is it's set in the past in like Europe or North America where basically everyone's white. I mean, in North America you have Native Americans and eventually African Americans and everything else, but at a certain point in history, everyone's going to be white in these stories. That's just the way the world was, and so that's where you run into problems. But in like say sci-fi, it's in the future or now, but probably in the future. Well, hell, whenever we go to space, everyone's going to space. It's not going to be like, no, sorry, whitey's only. Like that's not going to happen. I mean, everyone's making their move to go to space. The Chinese, the Indians. I think the Prime Minister of India is making a move to change the name of the country, by the way, and I don't remember what the new name is. Starts with a B. He went to one of these big gatherings of world leaders, and it didn't say India in front of him; it had a different name. So I think on the world stage they're trying to change the name of the country. I've got to look into that. But anyway, my point is, when I watch a sci-fi movie in the future, sure, everybody's there. Of course, there's going to be diversity out in space. Men and women in charge. Like I mean. Because it's the future.
Well,
hopefully we're getting along better in the future.
I mean, the original series should have shown that. That is supposedly the ideal vision of the future.
Oh yeah, Star Trek.
Yeah, Star Trek. Yeah, sorry, I said the original series, but yeah, Star Trek, the original series. It was, and the show was groundbreaking for it. I mean, it was
right, and that's what we all hope is going to be in the future. Where we lose this petty stupidity differences that we have. That's why with sci-fi it works. Like an Alien, the first crew, you got Ripley as the hero. That was a rarity at the time, and Ripley has gone on to become like one of the two like definitive sci-fi, just action female heroes. Period. It's her and Sarah Connor basically, and that's what you get. So sci-fi has generally got it covered. It's like I said, it's adaptations and movies set farther back in the past in certain parts of the world that you try to put things in there and it's like, yeah, I'm sure there's like a 1% chance that could have happened, but like, are we really going with that? Or you do it in a smart way like in Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. Robin Hood is off fighting the Crusades. Who helps him escape? Morgan Freeman's character, who's a Moor. And so he's like, well, I was in prison too. Like, they're going to arrest me too. Like, I'm going to come with you if that's cool. All right, sure. Let's go to England. Makes perfect sense.
Yeah. But anyways, like I said,
Yeah, anyway, we're gonna get into people are gonna get pissed off at us in the comments, so we keep going down this
yeah.
road.
No, I get that. So like I said, to lighten the mood, I did watch a couple of movies uh, over the weekend here, and that was two movies with Pauly Shore in it. One as a voice role, and one as lead role. The first one was a Goofy movie.
Who does he play in a Goofy movie?
He plays one of Max's friends that likes cheese.
Okay.
Yes. His famous
I could
line.
have sworn I've seen a Goofy movie. Of course, if I've seen it, it was like 30 years ago. But
Yeah, there was a guy that liked the canned cheese,
okay,
and he made the Leaning Tower of Cheese. The Leaning Tower of
sure.
Cheese.
By the way, do you know what Goofy's supposed to be?
A dog.
He's a cow.
Is he?
Yeah. Came across that one day because they were like, well, but I don't remember who else is there that's clearly a dog. Like, but Goofy's not that.
Well, Pluto's a dog.
Yeah. And but yeah, so this is like the last couple months I came across something that is like it laid it out, and it's like, yeah, that all makes sense. I guess he's supposed to be a cow.
No, it's a good movie though. I mean, it's obviously one of those. It's a good Disney movie. Definitely an underrated one that people don't go back to. But we kind of
spun out of the TV series, didn't it?
Yes, out of Goof Troop. Because it's got Max and his son Max, Pete, and which I assume PJ is Pete Jr. So, but anyways, it's a cute little movie, and it just what made me think about watching it as that I've seen lately as a TikTok trend. Not that I get on TikTok, but off Facebook I see TikTok videos, and they there's people doing the power line dance from the end of the movie, like in live action. And it's something else. But then on Tubi we watched Biodome.
I haven't watched all of Biodome. I started watching it one day, like again, 25 years ago.
And it was one of those '90s movies that stayed in the '90s for a reason. If you want to get a good look at what '90s humor looked like in '90s fashion and all of that, that is a good movie to look at because, like I said, it's not you can watch it all the way through and it's not like, oh my god, this movie's terrible, like I can't make it through. But oh my god, the movie is terrible. What the hell am I saying? It's terrible, but it's a terrible you can watch, if that makes any sense. And not terrible in a good way. It's just, though.
Is it better than either Encino Man or In the Army Now?
No, it's worse than that.
Okay.
Though I do, I did. There was one joke that I was like, well, this is kind of ahead of its time, and that was that they were in the car driving around, and they're like, Biodome, so it goes both ways, and they're like us.
Yeah.
No, okay.
Not that I'm going to call it ahead of its time, but there's a Bond movie that was way ahead of its time. Diamonds Are Forever. The two like henchman killer types. It's a gay couple.
Well, I think it's the same with in Octopussy, isn't it? That all the women.
I think it's implied, but the one that is for the book, the movie's a little bit different, is Goldfinger.
Okay.
The main woman in that, I'm not entirely certain I could say her name on here or not. But the reason she has that name, and the reason she has the all-female flying squadron, is because she's a lesbian. Now, in the movie, Bond, well, I don't want to say he woos her over. He definitely forces himself on her. Like, there's no other way to read that scene. The roll in the hay, that's probably the inspiration for the Family Guy scene where Bond's like, 39 no's and a yes is still a yes. It's like, no, James, it's really not. But yeah, that's
Anyways,
well, whenever we do get around to talking about the Bond movies, though, We are going to definitely have the divergence into the highly suggestive names of all the women in the movies.
Yeah, well, I would say Austin Powers really did that.
The second one. Well, no, the first one does too, doesn't it?
They all do, yeah. Because
Well, I know the first two.
was it the first one that had
Yes, the
Alata?
first one's Alana. The second one's Ivana. Which one? Who's in the third one though? Anyway, yeah, those are a lot more on the nose. I mean, well, the one Bond one that I'm not going to say here is just like it's as on the nose as it gets. But
Yeah, but
yeah, I'll have to put like a mature warning or something in front of that video, I guess.
this is what we get for not having an actual strict guideline topic that we're going to go across, because then we just ramble into territory that like that some may find, like I said, it is all divisive, but at the same time you got to understand that you know the overall goal that we want to see in Hollywood with these movies is movies telling good stories, um, that do good that do good financially, so that movies can keep being produced and that things can still keep coming out, and that people that are entertained. And you just there's just that balance that needs to be found for all of that to happen.
Right, and I know I've mentioned this in one of our other videos, and hopefully I didn't lose anyone with my little rant there a minute ago. Whenever there are changes to adaptations, like particularly comic books, because it's a highly visual medium, so you're used to seeing things a certain way. I've never come across one that I was just like, I'm not going to watch the movie because of that. It's just like, all right, fine, I'll see if it's still a good adaptation, you know. Um, because like the first like Daredevil, you know, Michael Clark Duncan did an excellent job playing the Kingpin. You know, no matter what he looks like in the comics, he did a good job playing the Kingpin.
Yes,
You know,
and he did.
it needed to be a very large guy, muscular large, not fat large, that that can act. You know, that's at the time I was at a loss for a white guy that could do that. In hindsight, maybe John Goodman, but that's basically it. Because the big other suggestion was someone like Butterbean, and I don't think he can act. So
No, yeah. In that point, but no, I mean Michael Clark Duncan was hugely intimidating. Just the
yeah,
in that role and all that, and I think it did well. I don't think that was any reason why the movie kind of faltered
yeah.
at the
Oh
box
no, no,
office.
definitely not that. And so just the larger point, like don't take my comments to be like, oh man, this movie's gonna be trash because of that. Like no, it's incredibly minor nitpick, and I still go watch the movies, and I still want to see how they're gonna play out. You know, because I'm still interested. Like if I was worried about comic accuracy, I probably wouldn't watch half the MCU movies because they're not comic accurate in a lot of respects. But at the same time, that's because this little inside Marvel stuff here. The comic book universe, all the Marvel multiverses are numbered. The universes within the multiverse are numbered. The comics is the 616 universe. The movies has its own number. It's not the 616 universe. So things will be different, you know. So that's just the way it is.
Yeah, so I mean, it works. I mean, it gives them a reason to have a little bit of difference.
Yeah, because as I've said before in one of these other videos, uh, for me personally, I want one of two things. I either want character accuracy, and then they make up their own story, or cobble together some adaptations or something, or I want absolute slavish devotion to remaking one of the storylines. The MCU's that first one. Watchmen was that second one. Probably why Watchmen's my favorite comic book movie, but it had a singular story to adapt. So that's not like, oh, let's make an X-Men movie. It's like, okay, from which decade? They've been going since the 60s. Like there's a lot to work with there. You've got to decide, you've got to distill it down to the essence of the characters and their relationships, and then just go with something. Or do like the other attempts and just work your way towards the Dark Phoenix saga. Whatever floats your boat.
Yeah.
First, I'd rather see him fight the Brood and some space pirates, but that's just me.
Yeah, it makes me wonder where they're going to go next with some random, group or whatever. They're going to go with like the Starjammers or.
Oh, Starjammers would be awesome. because then you find out that Cyclops' dad is a space pirate. But yeah, you know, I've said before that I think once they introduce the X-Men, they actually should go towards the Phoenix Saga because that's the prime storyline, and the MCU could use it. But in the meantime, maybe Days of Future Past, but again, they've done that already too. Do it a little more accurately this time. Although Days of Future Past is probably the best of the X-Men movies. So,
And as much as I don't want him to retread on, first movies, having Magneto as the villain, I mean, Magneto makes sense to be the first villain.
Well, it depends entirely on how they introduce them. If they're going with this like they've been here the whole time, I don't think Magneto makes sense because what's he been doing? You know, it just depends on how they introduce him. I don't want it to be like, oh, let's fight Toad in the first movie. It's like, are you only sending Beast or something? Like, the team should be able to handle that pretty easily.
You know what happens to a Toad when it gets struck by lightning?
Same thing as everything else. God, that was atrocious dialogue. But no, you use a group. Use someone that we haven't seen yet. Like use the actual Hellfire Club. Use, like I said, the Brood. Aliens. I don't know. You got the Sentinels. I'd say someone like the Friends of Humanity, but there's no like powered people there. It'd be a cakewalk.
Well,
so you'd have to pair them up like with the Sentinels or something.
Well, and I think it's got to be somebody because the Sentinels would be the second one because the first one should establish a reason for somebody to be like, yeah, all these mutants running around. There's something that's got to be done about them. We're going to create some Sentinels to, you know what I mean? Because
no, I see what you're saying, but I think I think you could almost do that in the background, like. You could have, a news report of Sabretooth just tearing up downtown or something, Well, be like, we should stop that guy.
There's one. Bring Juggernaut in. Have him fight Juggernaut.
Yeah, maybe. I don't think it could carry a movie is the problem. Because, the way you beat Juggernaut's really easy.
But all of his destruction that he does would be a reason for them to be like, yeah, these mutants need it.
Maybe, but he's not a mutant.
I know. Yeah, the mutants are.
Yeah, but the Juggernaut's not.
I know.
There's actually a really funny comment about that in a recent-ish issue. He allied himself with the X-Men because the government was going after all the mutants, and they're like, why are you helping us? He's like, hey, they're coming after you today. They're coming after me tomorrow. And they're like, hey, and I'm pretty sure guy powered by a magic gem is way down on their list. He's like, whatever. I'm here to help. Don't turn me away.
Yeah.
He's actually undergone quite a bit of character growth in the last couple of decades. He's an ally of the X-Men at this point. So, and that's nice to see that. The X-Men have a tendency to either, they don't kill their villains, and it doesn't matter because they don't stay dead. But a lot of them have eventually converted. Like Magneto is basically part of the team at this point, and heck, Apocalypse is a pretty good run as a good guy. Although I think he's coming back hard as the villain here in the next few months. So. But anyway, that's where the movie rambling has gotten us. So on the book front, this is going to be very brief. Going to be filming the Dragonlance Dragons of Fate review sometime. So look for that in the next week or two, just depending on when we get it filmed and edited. And I'm on to the next BattleTech book, which I don't recall the title of right off the top of my head, but we'll get to it. It's about the Tamar Pact in the former Jade Falcon occupation zone. 5 of you will know what I'm talking about. But yeah, so that's basically it on the books. I still have the giant stack of X-Men books I've got to read through. Then on to gaming. I've only really got one thing here. The BattleTech Mercenaries Pledge Manager has finally closed after 3 delays. So hopefully all of you got your orders in. Those of you who backed it. I ended up probably spending way more than I should have on it. So, theoretically, next June, I'll have all kinds of stuff to show off. But we'll see if that actually happens next June or not. Who knows what could happen between now and then? The last one got delayed by, in no particular order, a global pandemic, a ship wedging itself in the Suez Canal, all all kinds of shipping issues brought upon by those first two issues, all kinds of delays because the campaign went wildly over what they thought it was going to, and so they had to make all kinds of other new molds and everything. And yeah, I'm sure there was something else in there I'm forgetting. A container shortage, I think, slowed it down if I recall correctly. So as long as none of those things happen, maybe it'll actually come out in June. They do already have like all the digital renders of all the mechs done, and they didn't like just keep expanding like they did the last one. They're actually already manufacturing some of them, so that's a huge step forward. So it might actually come out around June. We'll see. I've only had like 3 Kickstarters actually deliver on time, and I had one of those 3 actually was here a month early, but those were all dice. Dice are easy to make.
Are they?
Oh, compared to the other things, yes. I mean, like I couldn't just like whip them up with, I couldn't like MacGyver some with what I've got laying around here or anything. But
I have a pair or a set of dice that I swear are made from bone.
I've seen them made from bone before.
Because they were old.
Yeah.
So
I've got some that are made from stone.
So on the gaming front for me, this is one I should have actually probably brought up probably last time around, but I went ahead and talked about Yeah Beavis, because that was the newest thing that I've watched. So I did pick up a couple of Sega CD games. So for those that are watching, I'll just do a pretty quick glance there. But the first one was Who Shot Johnny Rock for the Sega CD. And this is a point-and-click adventure from the Rollicking 30s, as it says on the back.
Oh.
So.
Not the Roaring 20s?
No, the Rollicking 30s.
Okay.
So, rated MA-17, so I'm assuming that this is just vulgar and everything else. No, I'm just kidding. That's like a Night Trap being rated that, and there's nothing that's actually even remotely brawn with it. It's like a cheesy, horror movie with, no blood, no nothing. It's just implications, I guess, makes things a little more. And well, I got that. And
not to seriously diverge here, Jan, but it's very similar to the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. If you actually objectively pay attention, it really doesn't show all that much. Your mind fills in a lot of the blanks in that movie. And what it fills in is pretty horrific, but like that's masterful movie making, because your mind will come up with something way worse than whatever's on the screen.
So, and I picked the Who Shot Johnny Rock for $24.99. So, it's actually pretty decent. Most Sega CD games start at about $20 and go up. A lot of them are not probably worth the money. I always like point and click adventures. I know on console they're a little tougher because you don't have a mouse.
Yeah.
But I always enjoyed like all the Sierra games. So your King's Quest, Space Quest, and Police Quest games.
Did Sierra have a Mech Warrior-ish game?
Probably. I
need to ask Chris if he remembers the name of it, because there definitely was like a game similar to Mech Warrior, but I'm pretty sure Sierra made it.
The other one I got is a more well-known title. Not saying it's a great title, but it's Lethal Enforcers 2. So I had the first one already, but this is the Lethal Enforcers 2 Gunfighters, which is a Wild West version versus the other one's Cops and Robbers kind of thing. This one's MA-13, which is funny because
you're shooting the whole game shooting people.
Yeah, just massacring people. Oh, and this is a Konami game, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Strap on your shooting irons, Greenhorn, is what it says on the back. That is just one thing that is missing from. I don't know.
So as a technical question, did you have to own the first one to have the guns for this?
Let me see here. Compatible with the Justifier game accessories sold separately.
Okay, so they also had a set you could just buy.
I've assumed so, because I would assume that this would be like if you already had the gun, they probably had one with the gun with it as well. Because
I know the first one only comes with the one gun. Yeah, you still have to buy the second one for the second player.
Yeah,
and it plugs into the first one, right?
Yeah. Now, yeah, unfortunately, the Sega CD version of either one is really not the best light gun shooter. It's close. It's better. It's definitely better than the the Super Nintendo version of both Lethal Enforcers and the Sega version of the Sega Genesis.
Did you use the Super Scope 6 on the Super Nintendo version?
Yes, you would have to.
Man, I was actually being sarcastic on that one, but okay.
Yes. I think they made. I think I think this one actually allows you to use either or the controller or which the controller means you have to like actually drag it across the screen. So no, because when it comes to light gun games, well, like I said, the Sega CD is close. The Saturn is just far superior because they went from the the recorded backgrounds, like the FMV backgrounds, to polygons for like Virtual Cop, and the Saturn's just way better.
So, for those of you who weren't around or didn't play these games at the time, Jimmy, explain what the whole deal with the light guns is and why you can't use them on modern TVs.
Oh, okay. So the reasoning why is that the way that the light guns work is it's a flash, and that's what the gun picks up. There's a light sensor inside the gun. That's why they call them light guns, because they detect the light. But the way that LCDs and plasmas and stuff work, that light doesn't project out enough. Because you have to remember, like a CRT, the way it works, and they're not going to be totally wrong on this. So if there's anybody that can explain this better, but something about the way that the light is shot at the screen, the gun can pick that up. And there's also something about the refresh rate, where the refresh rate does not match up. So like when it's expecting the light signal, the TV has already flashed, or the TV waits to flash after the gun's expecting to accept the light. That's why you can't take a light gun and aim it at the light bulb and have it work. Because if it just checked for receiving light, you could just aim it at a light bulb and hit everything.
Yeah.
But no, it's actually looking for the flash, and I think it has to do with both. I think it's the refresh and.
Well, I think don't the old CRT TVs, don't they work by it's projecting photons, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's probably just a matter of it's just so powerful it easily exits the screen, and
yeah,
whereas these don't really project light as such.
Well, and yeah, I think it's a little bit of both, but I think the refresh rate was the one that I think was the bigger issue. Though I have seen on Facebook that they have been selling an arcade kit you can get for your TV where it's got the light guns, but it works more off of like the Super Scope technology, where you put those sensors on your TV, and that's how it can tell where the edge of the TV is.
Okay.
So that you can do that.
All right, and so essentially, what you're saying though is like when you pull the trigger, the screen flashes.
Yes,
and it's the gun is trying to figure. The gun sees where you're pointing from the flash.
Yep.
And okay.
Yeah, and that's why a lot of them will say that you have to stand like 6 feet or a certain feet away from the TV, because otherwise the light won't also pick up on it.
Gotcha.
So, but no, yeah, those were 2 pickups. I mean, that was like $60 for around $60 for the pair of them, and I want to say it's not too bad, because Sega CD games are only going to go up in value. They're going to keep getting rare. I mean, obviously, being a CD format, you run into scratches and stuff like that. And I had to confirm that this one worked, because there was a nice groove all the way around, and they did polish this one for me before I left, so that just in case if it didn't work originally, maybe that would have helped. So.
All right.
And so at some point, I do want to get where we can actually play some of these. And if that's just us sitting on the couch with a camera aiming at the TV, I'm fine with that.
Well, I need to look into that, because we keep talking about like Command and Conquer, and I think I have all of the Command and Conquer games functional. So, people want to see them, or at the very least we can talk about them while like some gameplay is happening in the background or something. Yeah, so we need to look into, like, you said you've seen the thing we need to record it, and I assume it'd be something similar for a PC game, because it's just gonna go into the probably, I'm assuming, hook into the back of the monitor, then the monitor cable's gonna hook into it. I'm assuming that's what basically happens with the video game, right? You're just intercepting somewhere in the cord.
Yep.
Yeah.
They're pretty simple capture devices. Some of them have where you just make a connection in between. Some of them, there's maybe even a possibility where it goes into my HDMI up converter, and then you could grab it from the HDMI up converter and do it that way
Yeah.
too. So I want to do a little bit of research on that and just see what we can come up with, and yeah, kind of go from there.
Alrighty. So, on to streaming, I believe. So I got a couple things before we get into all the Ahsoka stuff I mentioned. These are going to be brief. I did finish watching the live action One Piece. I can do nothing but highly recommend it to those of you who haven't seen it. I have not watched the anime. I don't really want to jump into a commitment of 1,000+ episodes. Yes, that is how many episodes there are of this, apparently. And I was talking to one of my coworkers the other day, who's bigger into anime, current anime, and he said that I guess the creator said something to the effect of, "Okay, well now the prologue's done, we can get to the story." That the 1,000+ episodes of the anime are the prologue, and he basically said something to the effect of like, "I could write another 15,000 episodes." So take that for what you will. I'm probably just going to stick with the live-action Netflix series, which is condensing a few things as I understand it. It's only 8 episodes, but they're each an hour long. And it's on Netflix, so they are actually an hour, not like TV's 44 minutes plus commercials. But it's very well acted. It looks like someone took an anime series and put it into live action. All the like exaggerated, over the top stuff is everywhere. The characters look like they crawled out of an anime series. The writing's really good. I have no idea how it compares to the anime itself, like I said, but all the characters are very compelling. They all have interesting backstories that we learn over the course of the 8 episodes. These are all, like, to put it bluntly, traumatic, broken people that all have something in their background that's driving them to want to obtain this goal. And the overarching goal of the main character is to find, I believe his name was Gold Roger, the Pirate King. He was captured and executed like 20 years prior to the show starting. Well, his treasure's still out there. No one knows where it is, and it's called the One Piece. That's where the name of the series comes from. I'm assuming Netflix isn't lying to me on that one. Maybe they are. Maybe you anime folks are like, "Oh, this asshole doesn't know what he's talking about." But I'm just going off the Netflix series. But yeah, it looks good. The effects are all good. I mean, as if every once in a while, it's Netflix budget. But I mean, as near as I can tell, they built the ships these people are using. Like, that wasn't cheap. And this has been the #1 rated show on Netflix for 3 weeks running, which I think that's the first for Netflix. And there's been, I think they said 40 some odd million views. So this is really blowing up. And I don't know if it's a matter of it's actually just really, really good, or if it's just there's been nothing else good. And so something that's even kind of good comes along and everyone's like, "Oh, thank God." In other words, the Top Gun 2 effect. Top Gun 2 was an okay movie. I have no idea why it made as much money as it did. It wasn't that good. It was good. It was competently made. It was solid. It checked all the boxes, including Val Kilmer being in it. That's the main reason I went to go watch it. But, it was just a solid, well-made movie. That's it. It wasn't anything groundbreaking. Hell, I'm going to watch it again. I'm pretty sure they never even say which country they attack in that movie. I think they'll just say an enemy nation. Movie makes $1 billion. Anyway, so One Piece is really good. It's 8 episodes. Has like the end point was a logical end point for the 8 episodes. Yeah, obviously it's now other stuff's going to happen. But like it was a nice, like they wrapped up the arc they were in. They went through a few enemies. The crew is mostly together, at least from what I know from, the little bits of the anime. So now they're going on. So yeah. The only thing that's a little bit out of whack is they don't explain how some people can do the things they do. Because Luffy he's eaten a devil fruit. That's why he's like Mr. Fantastic. Since I never watched the anime, I don't know about the other characters. Like the Vice Admiral was strong enough; he just throws a cannonball at their ship, and it has enough velocity to it that it's going to do damage until Luffy like puffs himself up and bounces it back and destroys the main mast on their ship with it. Like, he's apparently just that strong. Like, there's no superpowers. He's just really, really strong. The swordsman, whose name I don't remember, who's one of the pirate warlords, he clearly has some kind of powers by the way his eyes look and everything. But I don't know if that's because he's eaten a devil fruit or if he's just that good. I don't know. I kind of wish those few little things would have been explained. That's literally my only complaint, and those are very minor. So, but it has an advantage over the anime though, in that it knows what's coming. So, at least in theory, it's setting everything up for future arcs. So, yeah, definitely worth checking out. And then I started trying to catch up on The Walking Dead because I checked out whenever Rick checked out, which was in like season 9. And so I'm about done with season 9. I'm pretty sure there's only 2 seasons after that because I've seen clips from a couple of the other shows. The one where they go to New York with Negan and Maggie, and I want to know all the backstory up to that point. And then also Daryl is apparently in France for some reason. So, seen clips from that, looks good. So I've got to give the other 2 seasons in between a chance. Maybe get AMC Plus at some point, watch Fear the Walking Dead. I don't know. Maybe.
Well, and here I am. I've never watched any of The Walking Dead, and some people are just going to be like, oh, blasphemy on that, man.
Oh, The Walking Dead's excellent. I will say it gets repetitive. There's definitely a whole lot of, oh, I think I've seen this one before. They find another group. It's kind of safe. There's some evil asshole over here that wants to kill them all. Because, like, you get that with the governor, and the governor is like, that's pretty peak stuff with the governor. And then you get Negan that's like the governor squared for, like, more seasons. And right now they're fighting the Whisper War. I don't remember what the hell they call themselves. They're the people that they wear the zombie skins and blend in with the zombies. But like they can control like the big herds because the zombies will just follow other zombies. So they're like, well, we need to go over here. So they'll just start walking over there, and the zombies will follow them. You know. So they're kind of a threat. On the other hand, they only use knives, and the other folks have kind of figured out their game. So since they have guns, it's kind of easy. Just shoot all the zombies.
Well, unless you're a Punisher with who brings a gun or knife to a gunfight.
Yeah.
Thomas Jane.
Yeah.
Probably one of my favorite kills in that movie.
Oh, my favorite was towards the very end. One of the goons that he gets through the lower jaw, and that one was good. It's like, yeah, that guy felt that.
Well, I do like the way he killed one of John Travolta's sons. He just like made him like hold
the bomb.
The bomb.
Yeah, it was nice to see like the smart Punisher, that like the Machiavellian plotting Punisher. Like, I'm going to make all these people really feel it. I'm not just going to be satisfied with shooting them. I'm going to destroy them.
Oh, like where he made the one guy look like he had, or his wife looked like she cheated on him and all that.
Yeah, cheated on him with a guy that was a gay guy.
Yeah.
And like just like made John Travolta kill both of them. And it's like, yeah, and I killed your kids. It's like, I killed one of your sons. That there went the other one. Then I think what did he chain him to a car at the end with a bunch of mines in it or something? But
yeah, well, I liked how he chained John Travolta to the
John Travolta's who I meant.
Yeah, to the back of the vehicle and drove him through and making the Punisher symbol.
Yeah, I wish that would have gotten the sequel. Because from everything I've always heard, the only reason it didn't is because Thomas Jane was holding out so they could film it in New York. Because he's like, this is good, but like all the Punisher stories are in New York. That's where we need to go. And they just never like got the budget for it. Then they did go to New York, but he was replaced with Ray Stevenson. By the way, no offense to Ray Stevenson, but the third Punisher movie, or that Punisher movie, was awful.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't a terrible concept to have it all take place in a building, but or at least the main scenes, but
I mean, it worked for Dredd.
Yeah, but that was an apartment building, not just like a 3-story random building or whatever.
Yeah, or if you want to see the movie that probably inspired that, The Raid Redemption. That's like Dredd, except kung fu fighting your way up through the building. That's a hell of a movie.
I think the game Kung Fu for the NES is just you fighting your way up through a building.
You know, I mean, there's, it's existed in other forms. Like there's a Bruce Lee movie, Game of Death. It was parts of it were filmed after he died. So it's literally just a guy in a mask, like a flat printout mask of Bruce Lee's face. That's obviously fake. He's just fighting his way up the tower. More progressively tougher enemies. I think he fights Kareem Abdul-Jabbar at one point.
That wasn't there a movie just called The Game, which was where you would. I don't even know how it was, but like somehow you would go to this company, you would sign up for something, and they would try to.
Well, the one I'm thinking of has Michael Douglas in it.
Yes.
Yeah, it's the company like basically puts you through a traumatic experience, and his brother was like, "Hey, that's what my brother needs for a birthday present," and so he signed up for it and everything, and yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that's a good movie too.
I don't know. Just made me think of it.
Yeah, not the same as I think it's Surviving the Game. I think is the name of it. At Ice-T. It's basically. Do you remember the story we had to read in high school? The most dangerous game. I think guys got the island and like ships. There's got like rocks and shit around it, so the ships naturally wreck. He gets the guy that survives and is like, "I'm going to hunt you. Like I've hunted all the other big game on Earth. Like now I'm onto the real danger."
Well,
I think that was the most dangerous game. But anyway,
I was thinking of the one with John Leguizamo.
Well, I think that's the same concept except played for comedy purposes.
Yes.
Well, this is a more serious one. They had Ice-T. He's a guy that they hire. They take him out in the woods and like, all right, try to survive. Good luck. And just like in the regular story, he does. But yeah. So on to that sweet Ahsoka content I promised.
Oh yes, the sweet Ahsoka content.
So here goes. There's a number of things I don't think we mentioned in our review that we kind of talked about a little bit, and some other people have definitely brought them up. So, number one, do we think Thrawn's stormtroopers are dead?
Well, I thought we made a comment because
I think
Owen
we
did.
I think we made a comment, but like now we've had time to let it swirl around a bit. Like,
well, it makes me wonder about Enoch because there's something that to be learned there. I don't know. But no, I think there's always a possibility because the fact that their uniforms and everything are trashed and
and that's kind of another thing.
Because I figured and I mean, don't get me wrong, Thrawn's not going to be like, yeah, cleanliness is next to Thrawnliness.
I think you would actually,
but well, I mean, not in the point of we're barely surviving here. I think he's going to do the right thing, but to that point, I think once he's gone, he's going to be like, yeah, you guys, they're going to have to be not just a formidable fighting force, but they have to look good while doing it.
Well, and that brings up something else that I saw a comment on a forum point out. Like, I don't think Stormtrooper armor just like degrades. So they've been through the ringer against somebody. And it's not just being sucked into the other galaxy. Like, and that ship is probably way more damaged than just from the Purgles, is that what they're called, grabbing a hold of it. They've been fighting somebody. So who, obviously, is the question. So yeah. Maybe reanimated stormtroopers, we don't know.
Yeah, they were all buried and had to climb up out of the ground after the...
Yeah.
But I have a feeling that I don't know how well that dark magic would work off-planet, because I want to say...
Well, I mean, the Inquisitor was running around everywhere, and he was just a reanimated corpse.
Oh, yeah, true. True. Well, at least we assume that's what the case was.
I'm assuming it is, because I think that was the build-up to the reveal over here. The whole, like, we've got to ease people into it, we've got to remind them, like, this is a thing, and then we're going to show it over here. And so, to that point, do you think the things they were hauling out were, like, probably the corpses of the other Night Sisters that they intend to reanimate in the other back in the main galaxy?
Maybe. I mean, don't get me wrong. If that's the case, I'd be like, hell yeah. This is exactly what the live action Star Wars needs is zombies. No, no, I'm being serious. I mean, that would be,
There actually is. There actually are two books in the old EU that had zombies in them. Good stuff, by the way.
especially with the spooky month coming up. Which for you watching, you see that we've got the pumpkins out already.
Yes.
Um, there-
Also, get ready for more like top 5, 10, whatever list for horror movies coming up. So
yes,
I haven't told Jim that yet. He's just now learning about that too.
you son of a bitch.
So, so we have that. So, okay, I didn't see the episode of, I guess, it'd be the Clone Wars, where they fought the Night Sisters who were resurrecting people. So I don't know, like if they bring back the other Night Sisters, are they like with it? Do they have their powers, or are they just animated corpses?
Well, I mean, they're the I can't remember what they call it now. The energy. It has its own. The green energy has some name to it, but it, at least in the Clone Wars, it was Mother Talzin that was resurrecting all those. So you have to have somebody that's obviously, which they do. They have
They
three
got
of them.
three of them now.
They
Yeah.
have three mothers. So unlike in the Clone Wars, we only had the one mother. They've got three of them there, so it should be definitely be able to be done. Um, but the one thing that it takes is it takes a extreme amount of focus for them. So the mothers are going to be occupied with keeping the conjuring going, kind of thing. If they go down that route, um, but it's actually not the only form of zombies that have been featured in the Clone Wars. The Geonosian zombies were the other ones, because there was a whole episode where the queen has like larvae type things that she can let out and uh, reanimate dead bodies, and on top of taking control of other live hosts.
Hmm.
Because the way that Ahsoka is able to free her and Barriss Ophi is by freezing the ship.
Okay. So I ask that because now it's time for rampant speculation as to what we're going to see. If if those are Night Sisters, and they can resurrect them, and they'll have their powers if they do, then I think what's going to happen is their deal with Thrawn is going to include them using their powers to resurrect the manpower Thrawn's going to need. Like, once he gets back to the other galaxy, like a bunch of dead Imperials, to have the army that they're going to need to fight the New Republic.
Maybe.
Because and I don't know that they are at this point, because we've wildly diverged from the potential of just copying the Thrawn trilogy. But part of that was he gained access to a thing that the Emperor had, and that had Spartoy cloning cylinders, I think is what they're called. They can make clones in a week. Forget like 10 years to make a 20-year-old. In a week, you'll have a 20-year-old. And so that was his plan, was create a bunch of clones, and then there was a Republic fleet that had been, lost, and he knew how to find it. There's like 600 some odd ships in it, and so he was going to take the clones, man the cruisers, and go destroy the New Republic. So if they're going with anything approaching that, he's got to get his manpower from somewhere. And since we're already dealing with all this, I'm thinking that's maybe what it is.
Yes, and
then they'll just have a bunch of ships, because we have that other plot point. They'll have a bunch of ships that have been decommissioned, but are really just like in some system they don't know about, like Exegol. Not really. I hate that concept, but anyway.
Well, no, but I mean, and again, this is the whole
the concept of Exegol, not the Hidden Fleet. Well, the Hidden Fleet makes sense.
And the sequel trilogy stated that they were decommissioned. That's why there's resistance and not the New Republic or whatever. But no, but that would make perfect sense, because there would be a decommissioned fleet that they're decommissioning that he could take over. Now, one of the things that I saw on Eckhart's Ladder, and I sent you that video. I don't know if you watched it.
Oh no, I didn't. Sorry, I meant to, because you were like, hey, we should watch this. So I apologize.
And by the way, I mean, he's like, when it comes to like the Star Wars content shows, he's like the source to go to. So the one thing he had stated is the reason that they showed those 3 new shiny cruisers is because Thrawn's going to come and blow them up.
Oh, yeah, probably.
Because they're like, ooh, look how cool we are with our. And then Thrawn's going to come back and go, ha!
Probably not with the Chimera, but
Man, I don't know. He could figure out a way.
well, I'm sure he could.
I mean,
I'm just saying the Chimera has seen better days.
but if you notice in the hangar of the Chimera,
There were plenty of TIE
there were
fighters.
plenty of TIE fighters.
Yeah.
And the one thing that Thrawn knows how to do is he is a master strategist.
And I think we also know from the trailers we're going to see a TIE Interceptor swarm somewhere. I could have sworn it's in one of the trailers, but we'll see.
Because because I know Thrawn did not agree with Tarkin's doctrine at all.
No, he was like, just build 25,000 more Star Destroyers and TIE Fighters and TIE Defenders, especially the TIE Defenders, and just use superior numbers.
I mean, don't get me wrong. In their Emperor's eyes, he wants to rule through fear. He wants people to fear him, and yeah, a giant, whatever. But it's one thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, but clearly it was never going to be the only one because the second Death Star had to already be under construction in New Hope.
Well, of course.
So, and it's also like notably larger. So like the Death Star 1 is that's just like the test bed. Although in the old EU they actually was a test Star Destroyer. It was just like the skeletal frame, just enough to hold it all together. The reactor, the gun, and like a control room. And by the end, it was in the Maw installation. And there was a bunch of scientists, and they were having to have a stormtrooper try to like figure out how to fire everything. And he's just like, "Well, give me the manual. We'll figure this one out." He got it to work.
I think there's a storyline where
it was destroyed by the Sun Crusher.
Where the Hutts actually tried to.
They had Basil Lamelisk, who in the old EU was the guy who designed the Death Star, who just like wrote off the. People warned him about the hole, and he was just like, it's not. No one can hit that. And so, because it got destroyed, that's why the Emperor had him killed, cloned, killed again, and like would make the clone watch the last one die, and like through a couple cycles of that, till he was finally convinced, like, okay, he's suffered enough, I guess. So he didn't make the same mistake with the second Death Star, but the Hutts got him, and they had these creatures that had a hive mind to build it. The problem was they were easily distracted by shiny things, and so like Lamelisk had to keep constantly like, no, do this. And so it got built, but then when they test fired, it just like backfired and exploded. So, yeah. Because it was just the super laser and the thing to power it and something to target. That's all it was. Because they're like, well, you don't need the rest of it, You're just making planets go boom. You don't need.
Yeah, well, and the thing is, like what they did again with the. I know you don't like the X-Gulf fleet. I don't like the X-Gulf fleet. Like if they were
no
just
one likes the X-Gulf fleet.
If they were just regular Star Destroyers, I would have been like, cool, that makes sense. I think he would have been like, yeah, one. But no, with the super laser didn't make sense. The only thing that made sense on any capacity was the Eclipse class Star Destroyer, because it was a super Star Destroyer, super dreadnought with a super laser.
Yeah, even that wasn't fully powered. It was like a third power or something. It could crack the planetary crust, but it couldn't actually destroy the planet.
Yeah, because the problem is that nobody thinks. Nobody. They're like, it's just Star Wars magic. It's just the Star Wars universe things. They're like, no. The one big flaw with the Star Destroyers in general were that they had such massive power consumption. And you're now throwing a laser that can destroy a planet onto every single one of them. How are you going to fuel? I mean, okay, Last Jedi, fuel. How the hell are you going to fuel that fleet?
Yeah, well, that's the problem with the sequel trilogy all the way around. It just keeps introducing things, and they don't think about what it's going to do. Like in the first one there, that I can't think of the name of.
Force
Awakens. They've got that whole like, oh, we're going to come out of hyperspace inside the shield with something we had to do manually. Like, no, you're not. And were there two shields also that they had to like get between or something? Or I'm probably confusing that with the one book that explains the shield system on Coruscant. But yeah, so they had to stop inside the atmosphere, inside the shield, and it's just like, no, you're not doing that. Like I'm sorry, that's not going to happen. And so then the second one, The Last Jedi, we got the Holdo maneuver, We've got tracking people in hyperspace. We've got the First Order that's so stupid. It's like they need someone else to be like, you guys should be scanning for cloaked ships. And again, like I said in one of the other videos, if your enemy can have cloaked ships and you have the capacity to search for cloaked ships, that system just stays on. You don't shut that off.
Yeah.
Like, you don't like, oh, we should check this sensor. It'd be like on the Enterprise, if all of a sudden, like, Kirk was like, Spock, you scanning for anything? Like, no, not really. Like, no, that's just not how it works. No, playing Minecraft, sorry. Like,
what could be like the one guy playing Galaga on the helicarrier?
That's true. there was that one guy. And as much as scenes like that I think are a little silly, like, that was kind of funny, though.
All right, now I've got a cat that's going to start shaking the camera again.
But, yeah, and then, in Rise of Skywalker, you've got the super lasers. You've got there's only one way in and out, and this one machine is the only thing that can guide us. It's like, but what about the one Star Destroyer you sent out? Did you tell it to come back? And if you did, why? Nothing can stop it. I mean, it's a Star Destroyer with a super laser on it. Like, what the hell are they going to do? Well, let's send some fighters after it. Good fucking luck. Like, okay, well, you took off from that planet, right? Try to land now. No more planet. Like the idea that those things could be stopped at the end of the movie is ludicrous. The few that were out there that you see people fighting, I'm like, with what? The New Republic has no fleet. It got blown up in the first movie with the Star Killer base. All their ships were on one planet, and they got toasted. And a bunch of marauding people don't have the firepower to bring down a Star Destroyer, much less thousands of the damn things.
So, speaking of Star Killer, did you hear that the actor for Star Killer,
Sam Witwer?
Yes, is in some sort of going to be in.
Yeah, he's in here somewhere.
He's also in a Star Wars project coming up.
Oh well, I mean, if they canonize,
and I don't think
Force Unleashed, that'd be spectacular. I don't think they're going to.
No, but I think
well, he also does Maul's voice though.
That's who he's playing.
So,
which poor Ray Park.
What happened there anyway?
What?
Well, there was some kind of falling out with Ray Park, I thought.
I don't know, but supposedly that's who he's going to be playing as Darth Maul.
I mean, I think they should just do like what they did in The Phantom Menace, have Ray Park play the physical guy, and have Sam Witwer do the voice. Although I'd honestly rather have the guy from The Phantom Menace back. As far as the voice. By the way, you know who that is? You ever see Shaun of the Dead?
Yeah.
You know the kind of asshole roommate? It's him. That's Darth Maul's voice from The Phantom Menace.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah, he's also he's in a bunch of other British shows. There's one, they're all on YouTube, it's called Look Around You, season 1. They're like mockeries of like science shows. And they're like, look around you. What do you see? It's like, today we'll be talking about water. Or one is talking about iron. I think it's the iron one, where they end up giving a guy superpowers so the scientist shoots him. But it's pretty funny. Check it out. So anyway, some things that we, kind of either, we didn't really probably give the attention they needed because we were trying to be quick and we just watched the episode, I felt. So, on that front, I think I've come up with an acceptable answer to my space whale problem as far as the corpses and all that. And I read something, and just something that they said just triggered this thought. They didn't spell it out, but like the way they said it, and I was like, maybe it was this. So I got to thinking. So the whales get there and they die, right?
Yeah.
Well, they're in space. Like, once they're dead, their bodily functions are all going to cease. And being in space, whatever was keeping their insides inside is eventually going to stop functioning. Because, like, that's got to be some biological process. And at that point, they're going to dry out. Because space being a void is just going to suck the moisture out of them eventually. Like, once it starts, even if it's just like a rock hits one of them and cuts into them, like, that's the beginning of the end. Well, once all the flesh dries out, the bones are going to fall off of it. And so then that's going to be orbiting. Then another whale comes along. Well, the bones from the first one are eventually going to smash into it if it's a circular orbit.
Yeah.
And so on and so on. until eventually it's the bones hitting each other and pulverizing, and that's assuming that all those rings were meant to be that and weren't already full of rocks, which would accelerate the process if they were. So I can get behind saying that's what's happening.
Yeah, and like I said, I think that whole thing it doesn't really matter. It's just a little weird. Like I said, just like
Oh no, Jim, it matters. Space stuff has to make sense in Star Wars. That's why I complain about sound in space and the fact that fighters bank like aircraft in the atmosphere. And I'm being completely sarcastic, folks, by the way. I don't complain about those things because they look awesome.
yeah, because otherwise it wouldn't
I'm
be.
well aware that they should not do that, but they do.
And don't get me wrong, I think the movies that do like silent space are good, but when you're having like an action movie that's supposed to have
Yeah.
excitement and stuff, could you imagine a musical score with no sound behind it because you couldn't hear any of the ships? It's like dun dun dun
Yeah.
dun 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 dun.
But yeah, I just wanted to say that it sounded like I was probably making a big deal about it in the Ahsoka thing, and I've settled on an explanation that makes sense for me. So do with that what you will. But that does also kind of lead into one other thing that I've been thinking about lately, and Star Wars is in a weird place here. Parts of it are trying to be serious and adult, like Andor, and arguably Rogue One. And other parts of it are just like embracing the fact that this is based on adventure movies from almost 100 years ago at this point that influenced George Lucas's childhood, and we're not supposed to take them at all seriously, or only as serious as the plot demands. And the problem, I think, this goes back to literally the first two movies, because A New Hope, yeah, it's got a few serious points, but by and large, it's a swashbuckling adventure movie set in space.
Yeah, then
But then Empire comes along, and Empire's like, yeah, well, guess what? Consequences. Here they come like a sledgehammer. You know.
well, and that probably explains why The Empire Strikes Back is probably my favorite of all
Well,
of the
right,
movies.
and it's a movie that takes itself a lot more seriously, and the franchise is built on that movie, not A New Hope. It's built on that one. But then you kind of swing back with Return of the Jedi, and then the Clone Wars, like the Phantom Menace, is a lot more like Return of the Jedi. But then we get more serious as we go along toward Revenge of the Sith, where it's like this is a serious movie, you know.
Yeah.
And I think the franchise needs to figure out where it's going, because like we have Ahsoka, I don't think we're supposed to take this all that seriously. Like this is swashbuckling, daring do adventure. It's got hints of seriousness. The Mandalorian is very much in that mold. But then you have Andor that's like, so, want to know what it's like to live under an oppressive regime? Here we go, 12 episodes of it coming at you. And it's an excellent show, but it's just like this massive, what is it, dissonance, I think is the word I'm looking for here. Massive dissonance between the two approaches. And I think that's really I think it's throwing a lot of people off.
Well, and I think there should be a balance in the middle. There it shouldn't be just
as in all things.
Yes. No, but I don't know. Listening to you talk there, I just had just for some reason I just had an idea of something we could probably go into at some point, and that is a breakdown of a scene or scenes of any sort. Because while Empire Strikes Back is my favorite of all of the Star Wars movies, I still think my favorite scene is in Return of the Jedi when they run across the hidden Imperial fleet.
Oh, yeah.
Because
the infamous Akbar moment.
It's a trap.
Yeah.
Because I'm telling you,
my favorite scene is in that movie, but it's not that one.
Because I mean, that's the shit your pants moment that you realize. Well, I think, and I'm telling you, is one of the Rogue Squadron games really does that scene well, because when you see your rate, I mean, and maybe that, maybe X-Wing Alliance, I think both of them have a pretty good thing on how it looks. But as you see as you are flying in your X-wing or whatever, and you see your radar just start filling up with signs, and you're just like,
The TIE fighters that just appear out of thin air,
yes,
just like in the movie.
yes, because it's just a mass of them, and you're just like, holy crap, this is getting real. That's why in the games, a lot of times it's not like destroy them all. It's like you destroy X.
Survive.
Yeah, it's like destroy X number until the shield generator's down. Um, in time for these ships to be able to engage the Star Destroyers at point blank range.
Yeah, you'll survive longer than you will against that Death Star. Sorry for massacring your lines there, Billy D. But
But no, so what scene in Return of the Jedi is your?
it's a toss up. It's either whenever Vader finally does the right thing and kills the Emperor, because like literally the entire saga is building to that moment, you know, or it's whenever he's dying and is telling Luke that like he actually wants to truly see what he looks like and not through the filter, like accepting that, I'm gonna die, nothing's gonna stop that. We have this one moment, I don't want to waste it.
Well, yeah, I mean that has a whole lot of weight to it. I mean, I think as a a point in the movie, yes, but I just meant the crazy like get your blood pumping moment. That Vader dying doesn't quite do that for me.
Well, I'm just saying that's
No,
my,
no,
my
no.
favorite, probably my favorite moment in all the Star Wars movies. I mean, like for the other,
I do,
for the other, it's probably actually the lightsaber battle in the Phantom Menace,
I do. At least
the final lightsaber battle.
I do. At least in that one scene, though, I do kind of. I think it kind of sucks that because they didn't get Prowse to play.
No, that's Sebastian Shaw when he wasn't busy leading the Hellfire Club.
And
just very briefly, for those of you that don't know, there is a real club called the Hellfire Club that is very much like the one in the comic books of the X-Men. It's nothing but like debauchery and excess. And in the comics, the Black King of the Hellfire Club is a guy named Sebastian Shaw. This is not that guy. He just happens to have the same name. So just a little X-Men sidetrack there. No, I feel sorry for old Prowse there. Didn't know it wasn't going to be his voice in the first movie. I think he didn't know it was going to be not him in the third movie too. I think he didn't know that scene was in the movie. Because if I recall correctly, he was very pissed after that. I mean, I would be too, but
well, well, it's. But no, I mean, like, yeah, they at least give him some credit. I mean, you take his voice away; he doesn't have his voice, and then you take away his actual only time he would be out of the mask.
and then it's Sebastian Shaw as the ghost before they replaced him with Hayden Christensen. So, yeah,
I mean, that is the ultimate.
yeah.
I mean,
Well, that's and for those of you who have never caught on to this, if you watch A New Hope, his timing is way different from James Earl Jones's. There's a couple times he's talking where James Earl Jones stops talking and Vader's like still going through the motions of the conversation. It's mainly in the boardroom meeting where he chokes Admiral Motti almost to death. Because he's saying something, he's still like going through the motions. They couldn't cut it to make it look right, without really screwing up. Another little technical note: pay attention whenever they're on the Death Star and they're anywhere near a door that's going up and down. Look at the people's eyes. They'll start to blink and then be instantly back to their eyes are open. Because to make the doors look like they're going up and down so fast, they just took frames out of the film. So like, but some of them are like a mid blink whenever it's happening, and like once you see it, like it looks really weird.
not as weird as Han moving his head from a blaster fire.
Yeah. Or in Return of the Jedi, when he's running away from the bunker, you can see the reflection of the glass that they're about to hide behind because there's going to be a real explosion right behind him. And it's funny because that also happens to Harrison Ford in Raiders of the Lost Ark. When he falls down into the chamber the first time, that's a real cobra right in front of him. There's glass between it. You can see the reflection of the cobra when it goes to strike. So most of those snakes were just cut up hoses. They couldn't find enough snakes.
Well,
and a lot of the snakes that are in there are not indigenous to Egypt. They just filled it with everything they could find. So a whole bunch of little fun movie trivia for you here, folks. The best thing about Raiders, though, is the truck scene. That's really Harrison Ford being drug along underneath the truck.
you what?
that where the Ark is on board the truck, and he like goes through the front. The guy throws him through the front window, and it goes in the grill and goes under the truck. That's Harrison Ford. That's not a stunt double. Because, as he said in an interview, he's like, "Well, we filmed that scene kind of early on. I figured if it was dangerous, they'd be using a stunt double or something. It wouldn't risk the movie on me like getting killed." George Lucas is, well, So that's, if you pay attention, there's a trench so that he would be under, so he'd be hopefully out of the way of everything. So yeah.
Well, that's like in I want to say it was Back to the Future Part 2 where they literally hun Marty. I'm trying to think.
George McFly. Are you talking about where how they basically had to put his dad in, but they didn't want to pay Crispin Glover?
No. This is no. Like there's a scene where I guess they're lynching. I can't think of his name.
Brown.
No, Marty.
Huh.
And yeah, like he literally passed out and like pretty much almost died.
Oh, okay. Didn't know about that.
And I don't remember what scene it is. It's the Wild West one, right?
The third one.
Third one. Okay, sorry, third one. It's whichever one's the Wild West one. Yes.
Yeah.
So.
Also, one of the first sets of movies where they filmed multiples of the movies at once. They filmed 2 and 3 at the same time. Because 2, I don't know if it's right at the end or if it's at the end credits, has a preview for the third movie in it. So,
which has become pretty commonplace. So
yeah. Also, just a little side note: Back to the Future is going to be back in theaters sometime in October for like a day or two, because it's the probably 35th anniversary.
I've seen the most embarrassing thing, speaking of Back to the Future, where somebody could not get the concept of how that they didn't actually go back to 1955. It was just this post where this person just like, well, no, but why didn't Marty warn people of all this impending whatever? Like, it's you mean in the movie? Like, yeah, I guess he could have. They're like, no, why didn't he just go back, and when they went back and filmed it, they did not tell him about like events coming up, and they're like, they didn't actually go back to 1955 to film this, and they're like. Now, again, it's something you see on the internet.
Can you imagine if that's how we actually film time travel movies? Like, oh yeah, we got a time travel machine. Let's go back to 1955. It'll be really historically accurate. Tell people, no, we can't do that. That might damage the flow of time, but filming this movie, no, that won't.
And it's just like, some people are just like, you don't know. It's like, is this something that somebody really thought? And it's like, oh, I don't know. And anymore nowadays, it's like,
well, I mean, yeah, but I mean, that's up there with the fact that like a third of people, or something really high like that, apparently don't have an inner voice or can't like picture things in their mind.
Yeah, or somebody.
Like, I was just astonished whenever I read that. I was like, how is that possible?
Well, my question is, how do they read a book?
I assume they read it out loud. Or they, the only thing I can assume is they just didn't understand the question. Like it's asked in some like arcane manner or something, and they're just not grasping what they're saying, right? Because they can't picture things in their head.
Well, that's like where I've seen it again in like on some video or whatever, where a girl went to a therapist because she said there was a voice in her head, and they're like, "That's your inner voice."
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I shouldn't complain. I spent an hour looking for something one time as a Lego piece, like sorting through. It's in my left hand. Right-handed. I was like, sitting there, I was like, yeah, it happens. Like, I felt very stupid in that moment. Like, feel pretty stupid saying it now too, but
Well,
this is the slice of life you people sign up for.
Well, especially if they made it to this end of the video.
Hey, I told them to hang on for the Ahsoka thing. So, the other final thought on the Ahsoka thing is, I think some other folks, primarily here on YouTube, are just being way too damn critical of this show. That's the hot take, by the way, is the show is actually entertaining. It's not great. It's got problems. If you've seen our other videos, I've been very clear about what I think are the problems. But there's a video I watched, and I can't remember who it was, but he's just going through and ranting and raving, and I was like, literally a third of the things you found wrong with this are explained in the show if you paid the slightest bit of attention to it. And like one of these, like, oh, so Star Destroyers can just hover now. It's like, have been able to since at least Rogue One. Like, that was in a movie, in a theater. Like, that's canon. Like, what the hell are you talking about? Yes, they can.
And I mean, I understand them not knowing that that they use repulsor technology, anti-gravity type technology.
Yeah, I
to
can
do
understand
that.
if they don't know how it happens. Sure, whatever, because the movies don't explain it.
Well, the one thing that they never explain is that is why they use walkers instead of repulsor lift vehicles because
I'm assuming this is pure assumption here that it's similar to BattleTech in that there's a flaw in them that they can't like go across water or something.
well, for what they explain is that there are some planets where repulsor stuff it doesn't work as well or doesn't work at all.
Like wonky magnetic field or something.
Yeah, but then landing anything makes it a pain in the ass too because that's one thing that even like fighters and stuff like that. Well, I don't know how much like the fighters do, but a lot of the starships have to have some sort of repulsor lift to allow it to fly and hover in atmosphere. Otherwise, they would just come crashing down because gravity would pull them down.
Right.
The Millennium Falcon is fine because Millennium Falcon doesn't weigh,
isn't a mile long and take 45,000 crew members to crew. Just two guys in the cockpit. Yeah, there's a little bit of a difference in scale there.
Yes. So yes, there has to be some sort of technology that allows that to happen. For a while they got away with it because they never entered atmosphere, and Kuat Drive Yards was orbiting a planet, not in atmosphere. But even the EU has, I believe, made mention of ships like the.
There's the Super Star Destroyer buried on Coruscant. Like it achieved escape velocity. It incinerated miles of the planet in the process. Because I mean, the ship is what are they? Are they 18 or 32 miles long? They're hellaciously huge. But imagine an engine that's probably bigger than the Star Destroyer, and it has, I believe, 9 of them, if I remember correctly. Like all firing up all at once. Like, yeah, whatever's behind that for a good mile or two is just atomized.
But even then, I mean, you still have to have the
you still got to go up.
You still have the repulsors and stuff because otherwise you're just going to destroy the ship. That the engines are just going to go through the ship.
Yeah.
So you still have to have a way to lift it up, but no, I mean there has to be ways of doing that, and that's been mentioned in multiple formats. And I don't expect everyone to know that because I mean obviously you have to play the games, read the books,
but the point is,
all the movies.
Yeah, but the point is, there's at least one very noticeable moment in a canon film that everyone seemed to like.
I did.
Where they're in the atmosphere with the Star Destroyer. It's just parked over Jeddah. Its engines aren't flaring until it finally starts to move. So clearly that wasn't what was holding it up. Not that it matters what's holding it up. It would be magic for all we care. But the point is, that was one thing. Another big complaint I'm seeing is Thrawn looked fat. And I'm just like, what the fuck are you people talking about? Like, he did not look fat. Yeah, he might have been a little chubby. The guy's been in another galaxy for the last 11 years. Maybe they only have high-calorie food there. I don't know.
Maybe it's just his resemblance to Elon Musk that made him think
that. And they were like, this doesn't look like a man in the prime of his life. I'm like, because he's not. He was in the prime of his life in Rebels 11 years ago. Now he's well into middle age. Like,
I seen a post today on Facebook that kind of explains this, where it's David Spade talking about these Facebook clickbait titles. That's like, these stars from the 80s, look at them now, 30 years later. And he's like, it's 30 years later. He's like, they're talking about some woman. He goes, and it was me.
I was going to say, unless it's Jennifer Connelly, who up until like a couple years ago looked exactly how she still looked back in the 80s and probably could still pull it off now. Like, she seemed to not age.
Well,
and Paul Rudd from the 90s.
Paul
He's
Rudd,
apparently a vampire or something.
And Keanu Reeves.
Yeah.
All people that... And I think some of that comes down to just the people that, I think they're decent people and they just...
Yeah, I mean, it's a crapshoot of genetics. Plus, do you take care of yourself? Are you stressed out? And do you have enough money, like, to buy the right skin creams and have a good diet and, work out a little bit at least? And
well, better than what Madonna's looks like anytime home with G's.
Yeah. I thought she was, like, auditioning for, like, a play set in hell or something, but...
if there's a thought of people being replaced by lizard people, I think they got her mask wrong. So, because she still looks like a lizard person now. So,
Yeah.
and I don't get it. Yeah, like people, I don't think she was aging that terribly, and now she just. Ugh.
No.
Oh, jeez.
But yeah. But anyway, my point is, it's one thing. Like, okay, like I said in the Ahsoka video, we're not Disney shills by any stretch. You know, if you've seen this, if you've seen you've seen the other videos where I talk about the MCU, like I haven't gotten around to talking about Secret Invasion yet because you guys haven't finished it yet, have you?
Yes. Well, no, not Secret Invasion. She-Hulk,
Okay.
I did get through She-Hulk finally.
Okay. Well, when we get to Secret Invasion, I have some words about that too. Uh, and I've obviously not been shy about the fact I think the sequel trilogy is a dumpster fire. Uh, but I think that there's legitimate criticism, and there's been a lot. There's plenty about this show to criticize. But then there's the other things that it's just like you're exposing your own ignorance that you're not paying attention to the show. And that's one thing that always drove me crazy back whenever the Internet Movie Database actually still had the forums, which was the greatest part of that, where you could actually talk to other people about that specific movie instead of just being part of some distant conversation on Twitter or wherever. And there'd be people that would criticize these bad movies, but their criticism was just sheer ignorance. And every time I'd be like, if the movie's so bad, why are you having to lie about it? Like, the movies were bad. There was plenty to criticize, but the things they were criticizing, like, oh, this doesn't make any sense. I'm like, it's explained in the movie. This doesn't make any sense. It's explained in the goddamn movie. Just pay attention. You know? And like I'm sure there's the counter argument of, well, it's so trashy I can't. Fine, fair point. But they never make that argument. And it's just like, if these shows are so bad, you shouldn't have to be trying to come up with things to complain about them. Like I've said, the drinker, who very much like his whole shtick is complaining about things, has pointed out that there are pluses to this show. He thinks the negatives vastly outweigh the pluses. Fair enough. But he's acknowledged that parts of the show are good. There are good ideas here. You know, that there are decent parts to it. Just in his opinion, not enough. And you know, that's subjective. You know, and he sometimes engages on a more of a critical level than a was I enjoying it level. And personally, I can do that, but I prefer to go with the did I enjoy it.
Yeah, and I think a lot of our criticism comes from things that are that should have been caught. People should have been like, hey, all of this would be solved if they just admitted, that hey, we found something. Regardless if we took if we took 4 X-wings to do it.
Yeah, every little piece of that's all dumb. That's bad. That deserves all the criticism it gets. And if that's enough to pull you out of the show, I'm sorry. But that's understandable if it is though. It's not for me. Maybe I'm just a glutton for punishment here, but like, I'm still willing to give Star Wars a chance when it's at least moderately entertaining, and this has been that.
Well, and Episode 6 showed us that it can be good. It can be, it told a good story. Everything kind of fit in. There wasn't really anything that was just so out there that was just like, well, that's stupid, that's unbelievable, or that's whatever.
There wasn't anything like that. The only scene I thought was like superfluous, to use the 10-cent words, was the whole deal with Sabine and the horse rat dog thing. Like, that drug on a little bit long after the firefight with the wannabe Tuscans. That was kind of stupid. That shouldn't have drug out as long as it did. But other than that, and the fact that we still don't know what the hell the damn plot is when we could have been told some of it, I think it was a good episode.
Well, I'm just hoping that
I'm hoping we learn the plot in the next 2 episodes. And that'd be great.
And I am hopeful that Thrawn isn't just immediately eliminated by the end of this season.
That would be a one-way ticket to I'm not going to watch season 2.
Yeah, because Moff Gideon wasn't, and I think they stopped Moff Gideon in a way that made sense, but you realize, yeah, there's more to tell here. He has the dark saber, and what the hell? How the hell did he get that?
Yeah. Plus, Giancarlo Esposito is an excellent actor. For those of you who have not seen Breaking Bad or Better Call Saul, his character there is like top notch.
And
Yes, the Chicken Man
and I think
is also a methamphetamine dealer.
And I think in season 2 he was really good. There's one moment in season 3 though that I'm just like, this doesn't make any sense unless he is a clone and he's just not as intelligent as his real self. And that's
the final fight.
not only that, but the fact that he's like, well, I'll wait here for him, letting him go through the Hall of Clones.
Yeah, yeah. Well, can't win them all.
You destroyed my clones. Well, duh, idiot. You let me come right through the Hall of Clones. Why is that in the hall?
Yeah, why isn't that in like another different secure location?
It's like, oh yeah, by the way, welcome to my base. On the way to the control room, here's my Hall of Clones of me. That's just about as like, why didn't they put rails in the Death Star?
Oh, the rails in the Death Star. It always comes back to that.
It's so stupid.
And I do wonder, since you brought that up, I have to comment here. I do wonder, do you think that influenced all the other Star Wars movies where there's just like obvious safety flaws everywhere? And they're just like, well, I mean, they didn't have it in the Death Star. Like, it's a meme now, kind of, in like the early days of the internet. Like, I'm thinking like the Phantom Menace.
Yeah, I mean,
like the big it's either a reactor, it's a plasma thing. I don't remember what, but there's no guardrails in any of that. You're just walking along. There's a fucking infinite abyss that I think goes to the core of the planet, if I remember right.
Yeah, so all you have to do is just one stumble, and
you're done.
I mean.
And I just wonder, like, do you think it was because of the Death Star thing and people always commenting on it that George Lucas is like, we're going to give these people what they want. The Star Wars universe is just exceptionally dangerous and has nothing resembling OSHA.
I mean, normally it's like, yeah, you're going to have a rail so you can look over the edge, and if you need to look down and say, oh, there's a problem with the plasma conduit down there.
Yeah, Joe's stuck in it.
And Darth Maul, I guess, too.
Yeah.
No, it's so ridiculous. You're gonna have to clip this, by the way. I think this is gonna be the best segment.
Oh right, yes, definitely. But the Cloud City had guardrails, right?
Yeah.
And then the thing in the void where they had their big final battle there, Luke and Vader, that had guardrails until Luke climbed out onto the stupid thing.
Well, the one thing that doesn't make sense about Cloud City is Cloud City is hovering above a gas giant.
Right.
There should be no breathable atmosphere at all.
Oh yeah, when Luke falls out.
Yeah, or the people are just outside.
Oh, that's right. There are parts that are just open, aren't there? Yeah. Well,
don't get me wrong. I'm assuming we'll use the logic that there's some sort of force field holding an atmosphere around it.
There, let's go with that. Because what I can't explain, because I finally watched the clip from the end of Rebels when the space whales take the Chimera, they shattered the windows on the bridge. Like Thrawn and Ezra are on the bridge when they go into hyperspace. Like, shouldn't they be, like, hyper dead? Because I'm assuming there's no air in hyperspace.
No, probably not.
And even if there is, there's definitely not any air once they get to the other end into real space. Yep. Like Thrawn is being held there by the Purgles, and, like, Ezra's, like, force holding Thrawn in place and not letting the stormtroopers come to the door. Like, they should both be dead.
Whatever.
I'm not complaining. I didn't want Thrawn to go out like that, so, okay, I'll overlook it, but, like, they should both be dead.
Yeah.
But then again, they told Porkins to bail out there at to eject right on top of the Death Star. So what do I know?
Maybe they were hoping his mass would knock the Death Star off.
He'd drop down the torpedo shaft and it'd be enough.
He would clog the exhaust port and the Death Star would overheat.
Backfire when it tries to destroy Yavin.
Oh no! But no, there's lots of things with the problem with Bespin, because if you know anything about Jupiter, first of all, the radiation is intense. Like, that would be an issue. The gravity pull would be intense.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's in the same universe that, at least I think in theory, the Maul installation still exists, and that's literally a thing in the center of a cluster of black holes. that you basically need the Force to navigate through.
Is that where the one character in the black hole is just sitting?
Oh, Reinhardt,
Yes.
I think was his name, inside of Maximilian in like robot hell. Yeah, probably. It's the burning wreckage of what was left of the proto Death Star. Yeah, destroyed by the Sun Crusher. Like everyone talks about, the Death Star this, Death Star that. The Sun Crusher is the thing you want. That thing's fucking indestructible.
Yeah, that's why I think it's the worst weapon ever.
Well, that's why the first book it's in, I think it's just in the one book. Their initial plan is, let's chuck it into the gas giant that Yavin's orbiting. Because like, well, no one could get to it. And they're like, okay. They forgot, like, there's people that can move things with their mind. So, I don't remember which one of the kids it is that's there training, uses the Force to pull it back out. And then they go into the mall installation. And the torpedoes don't work very well against the Death Star because they create like a chain reaction, but it doesn't have enough mass to go critical at any point because it's just like girders. So it'll hit one, it'll vaporize a small section, but it's not enough to get it to really go. And so I think it's just destroyed by like conventional means. But then at the end, I think it's Luke uses the Force and chucks it into one of the black holes and basically like, good luck. I'm pretty sure that did actually like smash it down to nothing. So,
but yeah, it is at least in the EU in probably any format. I think it's probably the worst weapon ever created. It's a MacGuffin. I mean, and then we're talking about stuff that there is this. I can't think of what it's called. So there's a space gun where they can launch a missile from like.
I have that's from the Dark Empire series, and I haven't read that one yet. But yeah, it's the Galaxy gun.
That's it, and you can
fires a bullet that destroys a planet or something.
Yeah, and stuff like that. I mean, at least that has some. It does have a weakness. I mean, you can blow it up, just a gun, and not probably very easy to aim.
Wouldn't think so.
Yeah, it's just out of any of the weapons, I don't know, the Sun Crusher. I do have it in a Micro Machine format though.
I think I have one. So. That's what we can talk about one of these episodes. We can show off the Star Wars and Star Trek Micro Machines sometime.
Yeah, because those came in a set of, they look like books.
Yeah,
and they had the ships.
Yeah, and that one's the Jedi Academy, I think is what that one's in.
Yeah, and unfortunately, they did try to bring back the Micro Machine sets, but they are far cheaper and crappier looking than what Galoob had brought out.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've seen the cars, like regular Micro Machines, and I sent you the picture of Optimus Prime, right? Is a Micro Machine, but it's of Optimus Prime. So like, I think like the back is big enough, the trailer, to put like a bunch of Micro Machine cars in. It's like a city or something, while also kind of vaguely looking like what the inside of Optimus Prime's trailer looked like from like the '80s toy. So it was kind of interesting.
Yeah. But I don't know. It's unfortunate that was just one thing growing up. I always loved getting the Micro Machine sets, and yeah, to your point, I've got both a collection of Star Wars and the Star Trek ones.
Yeah, I have an obscene number of some of the Imperial things. I think I have 2 Super Star Destroyers, and something like 9 or 10 Star Destroyers.
Yeah, I've only got like
bunch of TIE Fighters.
I've only got like 2 or 3.
I have 2 Deep Space Nine stations.
Well, the TIE Fighters were like, all it took was you leave it on the ground one time and someone steps on it.
Yeah. I'm not saying that if you're to look at them right now, they all look right. Like one of the Super Star Destroyers, like the end of it, like kind of curls up. My Deep Space Nine station, one of them, a couple of the pylons have just been like smashed to nothing.
Yeah,
there's a couple Star Destroyers that are kind of crooked.
Most of my TIE Fighters have been glued because the wings had broken off on them. And then like the only one that like I had an absurd amount of anything of was Jabba's sail barge.
Yeah.
I think it was because it was featured in multiple sets.
Well, there are multiple sets, and the sets were grouped in like weird configurations. They're like, this is for A New Hope. So it's got like, I think it's the Millennium Falcon, a Star Destroyer, and like an X-Wing maybe, or Vader's TIE Fighter. And it's like, well, I want more than one Star Destroyer, but I don't need multiples of these other things over here. which is fine because my Rebel fleet is like a bunch of Corellian corvettes and a couple of Nebula B frigates and like Home 1.
Yeah, well, and at least they did also have the other M80 that they also had for the Mon Calamari ships.
Yeah, there's two of them right there.
Yeah, it was the Home 1 and then and I had multiples of. I think I had maybe one Home 1 and I think I had two of the others, maybe three. But yeah, no, the Corvettes I had as many as I could get.
Yeah, well, I mean, and the Star Trek ones are in weird configurations too. Like I think it was like one set was I want to say the Enterprise D, a Ferengi ship, and the Borg cube. It's like, well, I need more than one Borg cube. I guess the Ferengi are going to have quite the fleet here, and well, the Enterprise D, like, there's always the what was it, the Yamato?
Yeah,
That's the same class, so sure, why not?
well, and then in the Dominion War, there was multiple Galaxy classes that were.
You know,
I wonder if they took the families off before they.
I would hope so. Well, folks, we're going to fight the Dominion today. If you live through it, you're going to be able to tell your grandkids about it, especially since they're also on board the ship.
And by the way, Picard Day is canceled.
Yes, Picard Day is canceled by order of Picard.
But school's not, so.
Yeah. Yeah, you might get an up-close lesson about physics here real quick, but... Yeah, they made it into it. The Jem'Hadar fighters had a micro machine, but not the larger cruisers.
No, I was surprised though that the Voyager actually had the movable.
Movable nacelles, yeah.
So.
Yeah, I still have that one, and it's still like in one piece. That's like the one valuable one that I have, and I think that's why, because the pieces can fall off. But one, I think it's the movie version of the Enterprise D. The saucer section can come off from assuming Generations. Because that would have been the last one. I think the E got a micro machine, but it was like at the very end, and I think it was in like a bigger box set. 'Cause that was the other thing they did. They're like, oh, buy this box set that's got like 22 micro machines that you've probably already got if you want the Super Star Destroyer, you know. Then you had to find one that wasn't like chrome. Remember those? Because they also had the sets that were like the chromed out. And then you had the ground vehicles that weren't like nothing was even close to in scale with each other. The AT-ST I think was a little bit taller than the AT-AT, and it's like you've got this all wrong, guys. Like,
yeah, which they tried to remedy that I think with like the Action Fleet line, which was the little bit larger.
Yeah, well, there's kind of like an updated version of those now. I've got a couple of the TIE fighters, and I only committed to buying the second one now that I've seen they are going to make the Interceptor and the Bomber.
Because I had Darth Vader's TIE fighter with Darth Vader that you could put into it.
Yeah, these come with the little guys that. Yeah, and they just came out with the AT-AT for that. And like the TIE fighter's like this, and the AT-AT is about like this. Like these are a lot closer in scale with each other.
Unlike the Lego UCS set, which I think is as close to in scale as you can possibly get, where you can actually fit 40 stormtroopers.
It's actually probably not, because the Millennium Falcon is in scale. There's one. It's like an $800 set, and it is like notably larger than this table. Like I've seen one at a convention. It's huge.
Well, I said closer to in scale.
Yeah, it's a lot closer than the set you'd find on the store, like the $160 one. Because I think it's like an $800 AT-AT. It's close. I think it actually has the right size cockpit.
Well, and the fact, because you could fit the 3 people in it, but the fact that they made the battle pack kind of thing for all the snowtroopers, and it was something like, I don't remember how you had to buy, like you had to buy 10 or something to get enough stormtroopers to fill the thing out, and you also were able to fill out the speeder bike.
Yeah,
because it had like 1 or 2 speeder bikes, but I think it could fit a couple more.
Yeah, Lego was actually really smart right at that particular moment in time, because they also released the Hoth ATST, the Rebel pack that had kind of like a little, you put a bunch of them together and you basically have the trench there for the Hoth base. I think the only thing missing was the snow speeder.
Well,
which is surprising because I think they've released like 10 snow speeders.
Well, and possibly, I believe what I've seen is one of the worst UCS sets ever made was the Hoth base.
Yes. Yes, if it's the one I'm thinking of, it's not good.
Yeah. It's one of those, it's like for a regular Lego set, maybe.
Yeah,
But when
yeah,
you,
it was pretty sketchy. And I remember at the time online, everyone was like, "Are you for real here, Lego? Like, are you pulling our leg here? Like, no, we don't want this."
uh, anyways, I think we've talked.
Oh yes,
I,
we've definitely rambled on this one.
I think
But
we've done a good
speaking
job.
of Star Wars Legos, I just want to throw this out there. I do have a small Star Wars Lego set that I'm hoping to do like an unboxing and a put it together kind of thing. So I'll just go ahead and tell you guys what it is. It's the Stormtrooper and the Power Armor, like that somehow like drifted over from Warhammer 40K or something. I bought two of them. And I've already put one of them together. Yeah, I don't care that it's not canon. It's awesome. So my Lego empire will have mecha stormtroopers.
Well, and I figured when we do our Star Trek fixes, we can put together the the Klingon battle cruisers.
Yeah, maybe.
'Cause they're not very large sets, but it just give us a chance to ramble on and put together things.
Yeah, if I ever get around to actually building them and displaying them somewhere, I'll show you guys my Christmas Lego collection. I've got about a half of a Lego Christmas village so far. I've got a train that'll go around them. I've got a train station. If the train doesn't have enough track, I have a bunch of extra track that I bought on clearance at Target one day. I think it's a post office, a bakery, maybe a house. Like I bought about half of them. They release a new one every year,
Yeah.
and I bought about half of them. So because a couple of them I'm so on, but I need to get the one from last year because it's got a couple Main Street buildings and like a trolley. And since I'll already have the train track, and its wheels should be sized for that. And then the one this year is a lodge. That's like like a stone first floor, like a wood upper floor, and I just wish it was a full building. The backs open like a lot of Lego sets, but there's stuff there though that should be inside the building, but it's not.
Buy two of them,
I actually did that with one set.
put them back to back.
Oh well, yeah. There's a Lego Castle set. It's like a Joust set that they released that was like 100 some odd bucks. It's pretty big, but all the pictures showed two of them put together. And Lego was finally like, oh yeah, that's not one of them. Like that's two of them, and they had to explain it, and everyone was like, oh, I see how you're gonna be here, Lego. That's some pretty deceptive advertising. Like, no, we never said it was just one. And I was like, that looks pretty cool. Two of those, I'm gonna buy two of them. So I actually bought three of them and sold the third one, but because it's like buy two get one free. But back in the Toys R Us days, did you watch that Toys R Us video I sent? Or sorry, Toys R Me.
No, I have not got to watch that.
Oh man, I'm not going to link to that because that's expletives flying everywhere. It's basically this manager at Toys R Us. It's God, I don't know the guy's name. He's the concierge in the John Wick movies. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And he's like this new group of people, and he's like going through, and he's like, you will only use the bathroom whenever I tell you can, and you will only you'll only use it when I give you permission. And on the off chance I do, you have exactly 4 minutes and 30 seconds to evacuate your bowels, and I will be counting. And if you don't, I will go to your house and take a dump in places that will leave you questioning for years. And it's like the pinnacle of all is like, this isn't Toys R Us. This is Toys R Me. You walk through that door, your ass is mine. And just like another 3-4 minutes after that, he'll just cussing a blue streak at everybody, even this little kid that comes in here. It's like, oh, where's the Xbox games? And he's like, let me tell you a story. And he tells him the story, and he's like, it's like an old man and a dog, and he's like, who do you think you are in this story? The rich old man? He goes, no, you're the crap the dog took on the way over here. That's how much you matter. The fuck out of here. Like this 10-year-old kid. And commits a little sexual harassment against one of the women there, and it's a hilarious skit. But my God, just like once he just started going with the language, it's like, all right, so this is where we're going, okay. But no, did you watch the other video I linked to today?
I have not. I've been at work.
It's a new Pete Holmes Batman where he fires Aquaman. It's quality. I think it's been 3 years since he made any others, but this he's still got it. It's good. That one I might link to.
All right.
But yeah, that's like Jim's saying. The music's playing. Not like I'm like the president or anything, and they just shut me up with the music to get me off stage.
Hey, yeah, exit over here, please. It's
Yeah.
over there.
But, yeah. Anyway, that's probably going to do it for today. If you didn't make it to the end, you're not going to hear this either. But obviously, the Ahsoka clip is what's going to be the one from this one.
Yeah, yeah. Like I said, there's good stuff in there. Good stuff. I mean, like I said, you can see we could just talk Star Wars forever. Same thing with Star Trek. I think we could stop.
Yeah,
Talk that
probably. So, yeah, thank you folks for listening. Even if you didn't make it to this point, thank you for getting as far as you did.
And if you did get to this point, I mean, I'm sorry.
If I had a medal, I'd mail it to you.
Yeah, I think we're at like 2 hours.
Yeah, probably.
I don't know. If we're not, I can't see the timer on the camera over there. So
yeah, we probably are.
And anyways, we've got some other stuff to.
Yeah, we still got to film one or two other things here real quick. So
yay.
Yeah, like I said, thanks for listening. Let us know what you thought, both on the content and the quality of the recording and all that. We did get one comment from our fan from Boston. He did say that it still sounds a little off. That was one of the earlier ones with the microphones, so he might have had the gain too high.
Well, and I think also the one cable you had was causing a feedback into it. It's hard to say. I mean, obviously, we're going to keep doing what we can to improve the quality. Probably tax time, and there may be some new equipment coming in. I mean, I'd like to look at the USB mics again to see if there's how much of a pain it would be to do that kind of recording. But let's say we had a fellow from Winnipeg that I actually happened to work with that did also give us some good feedback, and
well, that's good.
So,
yeah, we've been picking up subscribers here lately. So, I think our goal of 300 before the end of the year is easily attainable as long as if we keep with the pace we're going. It'll be like the end of October, but.
Well, we're fine with that. I mean, obviously we do. Right now, it's more of an enjoyment. Obviously, it'd be nice if it was a financial, vein as well. But
yeah, well, like I mentioned in the others, I've got some ideas on that front. I've got to iron a few things out, but once I get all that set to go, then I'm going to talk to you guys about some, contributions and who can do what, and we can get things moving along. Yeah. So even if that's just to ultimately make a couple $100, like with that we could improve aspects of this setup.
Yeah,
so.
The equipment, the sound quality. Eventually, I will set up, the nerd cave to be able to, actually have stuff in the background. I'll just because this is my dining room, so the stuff you see sitting in the background is sitting in my dining room. So we're here having dinner, and it's like, oh well, I've got a Virtual Boy in the background.
Jim never invites me over for dinner though.
I don't know if you want to eat what I cook anyways.
So I can't cook. Well, it's a possibility, Jim. So. Never know.
All right. Well, anyways, we already did the blurbs about commenting and liking and subscribing and all that stuff earlier on, just because we know that there's always a possibility people aren't going to sit through the entire thing. So.
Yes. So now for the closing, which I realized I've been getting wrong all this time. Like, especially with your follow-up. It's not may the Force be with you. It's the Force will be with you.
Always.
Yeah.
There you go.
So, the Force will be with you.
Always.